Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we got our wings on and we are flying to the sky. But we gotta hope that we don't get too close to the sun because it will burn our wings down and we will go down in flames. Today we're talking about Icarus. This is a card game by Victory Point Games. It's for 3 to 7 players. It is designed by famous designer Dr. Rainer Knizia. It's sort of a variant on Liar's Dice but with cards. Let's take a look. I'll show you how it's played and I'll see you on the other side. In Icarus, there are 7 decks of cards of 7 different colors. Everyone gets 1 of each color, so we'll have a hand of 7 cards at the beginning. And we'll take 1 card of each color and randomly throw it out of the game without anybody seeing it, so you won't know which cards of which ones are left. All of the suits of the colors of the cards have the same distribution of cards. 3 zeros, 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s, 2 4s, 2 5s, a 6, and a 7. Now here's what my hand might look like, 1 of 7 of each of the cards to start the game. Of course this would be secret, no one else would be seeing this, but this is what it might look like. On your turn you do 3 things, especially if it's the first one of the round. So at the beginning of my turn I have a card step, and this is optional. If I want to, I could discard any card of a color. Let's say I want to discard this orange 3, and I want to get this. So in this case, everyone gets to see that there's a 3 out there. Everyone knows how many cards there are of each, and I just pulled some new information that I know. Now I can bid on any color. And let's say I think there are 8 green. Now this is how many, the total value of cards from every player. They add up the value of their single green cards, and that's what I'm saying, there's 8 of them. Then it goes to the next player clockwise to me, and it's the challenge step for them. They can either accept it or challenge me. If they stop and challenge me, everybody flips over their greens, their single green card, and we add them up. If indeed I was telling the truth and it's 8 or higher, the challenger lost. And if that challenger lost, if they were within 2, they would get a -2 feather token. If it was more than 2, they would flip it over and they'd get -5 points. And then the challenger, whether they challenged correctly or not, they would start the next. Now, after that happens, of course, also what happens is everybody had already thrown their green cards away. This whole deck of green cards are now out of play. So as challenges occur each round, there's going to be less and less decks, less cards, and a little bit more information that comes out. Now, if instead of challenging, they accepted my 8 green, they could raise the bid then, but before they do that, they can actually do their own, what we called that card step, which is what I did, which was optionally, I discarded a card. They can do that if they accept the bid, but they don't have to. So let's say that next player accepted my 8 greens. They put down a card during the card step, they drew a silver, and they have to go at least 1 higher. They can go as many higher as they want, but they go 1 higher, and they can choose any color still in play. So I had said 8 green, they accept it, they throw down a silver, and they might go 10 red, as long as they raise it and they use a color that's still available. So your choices are going to dwindle as challenges happen, these decks get removed, and your ability to change the bets change. So that's it. The next player would go to the challenge step. They either challenge them or do what I just showed you. And this will continue as these things get challenged. All these decks will eventually get emptied as this goes on. People are going to be getting negative tokens at the end of each challenge. At some point, the last deck of the 7 are going to be gone. You would then reset it up as you did at the beginning of the game and continue to shuffle the cards, deal out 1 to each, throw out 1 of each, and put all the decks back here. And this will continue going until any one player has 4 feathers. You then find out who has the best score, meaning the highest score, and that player wins. If they're tied, they share the victory. Now there's plenty of variants actually to play this game. That's the base way. Let me show you some of the others. One of the many variants is just to play for more feathers here. Essentially you could, instead of playing for 4, you could play for 5 or 6 or 7 feathers just for a longer game. Another one is called the Daedalus Challenge, which when you let's say you had a card and you were going to do the card step, usually you would put it down here and you could see all the cards as they go out. The other variant is just to put it on top, so it's a little bit more of a memory element. There's actually 2 variants that bring in these special ability flight cards. These cards just do certain things to break the rules of the game. Essentially, for example, play during your bid step to start the bidding anew whatever value you desire. So if you get stuck, you can just throw that in there. Play when you're involved in a challenge. to immediately replace the card you hold of the color with the top card of that Icarus deck. So essentially, if you don't like what you've got, you can throw that down and just replace the card you have with the top one. Play at any time to examine another player's hand. Play immediately after one of these cards is played and cancel its effect. So there's all sorts of different things. There's plenty other ones, but those are them. Now there's two different variants on how to get those cards. The first one's Fancy Flying. Now normally, like you said during the card step, I could put this here for everyone to see and I would draw another card. Now instead of doing that, I could put this in front of me, showing everybody, and then I would get one of these cards. Then later on, if I want to swap, let's say, this card for one of these, I can do so, but this also comes out in front of me. So it's still more information out in front of everybody. The other way to get these cards is a variant called Talon's Challenge. And in this case, when somebody says like 9 oranges or whatever, the next player can either challenge or pass. If they accept it and they pass, it goes to the next player and that player has to challenge or pass. Unlike the normal game, everybody in clockwise order gets to pass or challenge. If it passes all the way around to the player who did the challenge, it's simply the next player's turn like normal. When somebody challenges, if they win the challenge, they then get one of these cards. So it makes people be more witty and more reasons to challenge things. The game actually moves a little bit faster. In my opinion, is my favorite variant and is the one I always play the game with. The last variant is called Fight in the Sky. Essentially, you give everybody the same amount of tokens at the beginning, 3, doesn't matter what values they are. Anytime you lose a challenge, you throw a feather in there, and as soon as you go, you're out and your cards go out, and it will just go back down into whoever has the last feather wins. That's more like the typical Liar's Dice. Those are all the ways to play Icarus. Now I was interested in this because I love Liar's Dice. I grew up playing it, it's such a fun game, and then I saw that Reiner Knizia came out with a new game that has some similarities to it, so obviously I'm interested. And I've got to say, this game is a very good game. If you like the Liar Dice, a Perudo type of game where you're bluffing and you're trying to get people to mess up and challenge each other, this is a really good game. It's deeper, I'd say, than Liar's Dice, and it's got some interesting things. I like a lot of the things about it. Now granted, it's this standard victory point thing where you've got like the paper map for the board. Components, sure, you might snip at a little bit, but the game itself is quite good. I like how you have the 7 different suits of the cards. You got some random cards that are removed from the game, so you never have perfect information. I love how you can give other people more information to get some private information for yourself, and you start to narrow down the deduction as to what numbers are there. I like how when you're bidding, you don't have to stay with the same color. You can do something and then you can go up. As long as you go up, you can change colors. It gives you flexibility. But then as the game gets longer and those cards get down, 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 every challenge the decks get smaller and smaller, the colors, it gets more focused, and I like it. The game has sort of this interesting arc to it that I really like. There's lots of variants to replay. We found the Talons variant our favorite. In fact, we don't even play the base way anymore because we found that when you play the Talons way, every person has to either challenge or accept it, and it goes all the way around, and the winner of the challenge gets one of those cool flight cards, those special ability cards to use. We found that's the best because people were challenging more often than not. It sped the game up, the pacing was better, the special abilities mixing were good. Overall, it's a solid game. If you're looking for a quick bluffing game that's similar to Liar's Dice but has some interesting, maybe a little bit more depth, some special abilities, it's a great effort from Dr. Reiner Knizia and Victory Point Games. That's Icarus.